free to be whoever you want to be. Feel free to dance, feel free to sing, just feel free. Feels like the world is picking on ya, feels like it's picking on me. But trying to please everybody, that ain't no way to be. So many people try to get you to fit their mold. I think it's time for a change. This is what I say. Feel free to be whoever you wanna be. Feel free to dance, feel free to sing, just feel free. Just let loose of what's got you down. Take your worries, stomp them in the ground. Just let loose of what's got you down. Take your worries, stomp them in the ground. Said to stomp them in the ground. You need to stomp them in the ground. They always got something to say now. Yeah, never satisfied. They'll never say it to your face, no, but they'll post it online. It's time to tell all the haters to go sit down. Just stop. This is the new decree. Yeah. This is the song we sing. The song we sing. Feel free to be whoever you wanna be. Feel free to dance, feel free to sing, just feel free. Let's do that, Brad. Yeah, and just let loose of what's got you down. Take your worries, stomp them in the ground. Just let loose of what's got you down. Take your worries, stomp them in the ground.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It's episode 90 of the Two Tone Talk by God pod. And man, I'm so excited today. And please let me know in the comments if we got any technical difficulties. We shouldn't, but just in case. It's good to have a guest today that is one of the most passionate Tennessee Titans fans. I bet at some point this man has had a take that you have seen have Titans Twitter up in arms, and we're going to talk some about that here in a little bit. And I'm glad to have him on. Diehard Titans fan, Sal from, and I think I got the sick podcast, Talking Titans.
That's it.
And
absolutely.
We'll talk about that as well. But I appreciate you being on today, Sal, and I'm ready to talk about the boys with you.
Yeah, Brad, thank you for having me. Big fan of your work. We talked about a little before the show. Always watch your post games in your car or wherever you're at on your porch. We share a lot of the same sentiments.
Yeah, a lot of angry ones over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Obviously you're not wrong in the sense that there are things that I've said over the span of, now it's probably about 6 years that I've been fairly active on Twitter as a Titans fan. I don't understand half the time why it gets people so emotional. I feel like I just say things that I truthfully believe that maybe people don't want to hear, but it's what I think the truth is. There's people that get paid to talk Titans football that say things like, we should have looked at a quarterback in the first round this year. Stuff like that. I can understand why, you would be up in arms, but
sure.
9 times out of 10, it's just, calling things out the way I see it. At the end of the day, I wake up for the team on the front, not the name on the back,
For sure.
I want a Super Bowl more than anything, and I'll call anyone out if they're not playing up to par, and that's just the way it is, Brad. I'm sure you can attest to it,
And that's the thing with me is I'm like, yeah, I see stuff every day that I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that. I'm on Titans Twitter, you just, of course,
Yeah.
people have different opinions. But I got to remember, it's like, hey, we all want the same thing here. Like, we all want a Super Bowl to
Hmm.
come to Nashville. I was like, so, we all have, and of course, during the season, when you're watching the Titans lay an egg on Sunday afternoon, you're gonna like. Of
Yeah.
course you're gonna be mad. Of course you're gonna react in anger because you don't like what you're seeing. And on that note, I want to say, well, we had an instance last year, and I don't even remember what game it was, but you had put out something. I don't remember what it was about. You were like, "I'm not
Mm.
happy about this,"
Mm.
and I was just like trying to make a joke, and I was like, "Oh, come on, Sal, you of course you're not happy about it," and like because it was probably we had lost by like 50 or whatever that day, or whatever, we probably had like 20 yards passing. And so
Yeah.
you were like, why are you coming after me? And I was like, dude, I was kidding. So let me start off with an apology for that little thing.
Oh,
I
God,
was
no.
I was trying to like crack a little joke, and it was just,
Yeah.
of course, when the Titans are playing the way they were, it's not a good
You know what it
time.
is, Brad? I'll tell you exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And, if you look on Twitter and you see the people that I regularly interact with on a daily basis, and this was probably maybe before we had done that, more frequently now.
Hmm.
It's a situation where I'm going to be upset if we lose, no matter what the scenario is.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a situation this past year where I wanted us to lose that last game, and it might have gotten us a superstar receiver if we had lost that
Are
game.
you talking? Yeah,
But
the
I
Jags.
digress.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I digress. I just it at a certain point when it's just constant day in day out when you or here was my original point that I lost for a sec. If you look at the people I interact with on a daily basis, like yourself,
Hmm.
you'll understand that I'm really not as crazy as some people make it out to be. The most people on Twitter who are sane individuals that you can have a conversation with every single day about Titans football and it doesn't get personal. Those people know who they are. You're one of them. I have a phenomenal relationship with those people, but
Right.
it's the ones that have burner accounts, have anime
Oh,
characters as their biopics.
yeah.
Those are the people that you say something that they don't agree with, and then they want to attack your
Right.
personal life, this,
That
that, and the other
yeah.
thing. And
Like,
it makes your fuse shorter, and that's probably what it was. I probably ran into a
oh,
few of those trolls prior,
yeah,
and then
for
Brad was
sure.
just, you were sitting there on the tee, and I was like, oh, come
Yeah.
on, man.
Well, yeah, I didn't think anything of it. I mean, that's the thing is when you're getting a million messages from at user 8247,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
and it's never like, and this is, I mean, you could say this about any topic, not just the Titans. It's like it's not enough to just be like, hey, I don't agree with that. It's like, hey, I hope your family dies in a fire.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, we're talking about the Titans, man. We're
Dude,
not.
I've had death threats. I have.
Yeah,
I've had
people
death
are.
threats in my direct messages saying I'm gonna find you and kill you. Imagine that. Imagine
Dang.
that. Now, obviously, it was likely a 14-year-old.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, didn't worry about it. Didn't take
yeah,
it seriously. But just the fact that anyone can bring themselves to say something like
for
that just
sure.
to a fan, if I
Yeah.
was if I was the kicker of the Titans and I blew a 25 yarder to get us to the Super Bowl. That's one thing, but
Yeah,
I'm some random kid from New Jersey that likes to post game videos, and I've been able to create a little family because of doing it, and I'm very grateful for it. But
yeah.
each day is a gift in this fan base,
Oh,
that's for
for
sure.
sure, for sure. And anybody that's coming into the chat right now, if you've got any questions, we'll try to bring those in as we go along. But the first thing I want to say, going off of that, this was not my original first question, but what we're talking
Go
about
for
here
it.
kind of leads to that. In talking about Twitter takes that you get attacked for, you were among the first ones that I saw that were kind of calling for a new coach, kind of
Hmm.
calling for Vrabel to go and bring in somebody else. Ended up being Brian Callahan, but bring in somebody else. You
Yeah.
know, Complaining about the offense and the lack of production. And I'll say, I was vocal, like, I think Vrabel's a good coach. And I was vocal that I didn't think they were going to fire him. Whether I thought there were some weeks where they should consider it, I didn't think they were going to do it.
Mm.
And a lot of people, like you said, were getting personal with you.
Yeah.
because you were calling for Vrabel to go, and it was like, oh, he was the coach of the year. He led us to this and he led us to that, and that's all true, but ended up happening. And
Hmm.
within like a week of the season ending, he was gone. What was it about Vrabel and his? Because we did have some success under him. You know, the
We had a lot of
most
success.
success we had since 2008. Well, you
Yeah.
know, with Kerry Collins. But
Hmm.
what was it? Do you think about these last couple of years? What triggered it in your mind that to say, hey, you know what? I think this time's coming to a close. This chapter needs to close.
It's one word and it's one word only. It's the best word I could think of, and it's stubbornness. And that's
Mm,
just the reality of the situation. Mike Vrabel is a football guy from top to bottom. I would never argue that.
yeah.
I would be horrified to say any of this stuff that I'm saying to you with him in the room because he is a very intimidating man. But with all that being said, in my humble opinion, I think he was a very stubborn coach, and I'll explain to you why I think that way. First of all, it's not very difficult to see that he wanted a lot of coaches that, anyone that was up for promotion, he wanted to keep it in house
Mm,
almost always. He liked to keep his guys around him through thick and thin. And towards the end, there was a lot of thin and there
mm-hmm.
wasn't a lot of changes. And, I think that ultimately led to his demise. Now, obviously, you can also point to the fact that it's come out at this point that he asked Amy Adams for a general manager for the general manager,
Yeah.
which is obviously not an ideal situation for Rand Carthon to see himself in,
Yeah.
year one or year two, and the head coach is asking for a third opinion already. So I think that was ultimately a really big red flag for me as well. And this situation with Levis. Was really the hump that broke the camel's back for me. He could say whatever he wants, and I'm talking about Will Levis. He could say whatever he wants. People in the media can say whatever they want. Um, in my gut, the eyeball test and everything in between, Vrabel didn't like Will Levis. He just didn't like him. You look around this league and you look at the way, coaches treat young quarterbacks when they have success. You know, he's the only one that didn't show emotion, didn't show, real love and support for the kid. And I couldn't stand to watch it. And, to hear him say or others say, oh, trying to keep him humble. Come on, man. Like, at the end of the day, this kid, in my eyes, and I hope most of our fan base's eyes, is going to be, our guy,
Yeah.
our Messiah, for lack of a better word.
Sure.
And to kind of like act like, oh, yeah, let's not make a big deal of the kid threw 4 touchdowns in his debut at home wearing the Oiler threads. It was a lot. I think it was a perfect storm of things, and I think Amy Adams Strunk clearly had some similar feelings, and she stated a lot of them in that interview she did. So, at the end of the day, I think youth and energy is what is succeeding now in the NFL at the head coach position, and not like Vrabel's old by any means, but Callahan worked his way up. The family lineage is there. We have his dad. I mean, I don't know how you could ask for anything better. I'm stoked.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you this, man, Sal. The moment we have a saying down south here, the straw that broke the camel's back for me,
Hmm.
because after he had the debut against Atlanta, Will Levis, and played great. And I thought he went on the road to Pittsburgh on a short week and played pretty well for that
Yeah.
situation. On the road, Thursday night, second start ever. And we were dealing with a lot of well, we don't know. I haven't named a starter yet. But the moment when I finally was like, hey, I don't think this is just a matter of reading too much into body language or anything like that. The first game we played Houston in the Oiler throwbacks at home,
Hmm.
and ironically, this game turned out to be what broke Amy Adams Strunk as well. It said that in the report that came out later. That game, I don't know how much you remember that game. We
Not a
ran.
lot because it was awful, and he was
Oh,
hurt too. He was playing hurt, and it was hard to
well,
watch.
this was the one though that went to overtime. This was in Nashville because you're thinking of the
Oh, this
second
was the
one.
one. Okay, yes, this was the one again that Stroud played in,
Uh,
right?
no, this was worse. This was Keenum. This was Keenum threw a pick six. Molden returned it, and we were up by like 2 touchdowns early.
Are you
Um,
sure Stroud didn't play in that game? I thought the first game was Keenum, And the second game in Nashville, either way,
Either
regardless.
way, it was
Yeah.
we lost.
Yep, we did.
We lost in this game. We lost in OT, and we ran the ball up the middle with Derrick Henry
Mm-hmm.
so much, and I got nothing but respect for Derrick Henry. I appreciate everything he did for the Titans.
Yeah.
But that day, I sat there in front of my TV, just with my jaw dropped at the play calling and
Yeah.
and just the scheme, of what we were doing. That day was the first time that I was like, we might need to look elsewhere. I was like, I remember I came on the podcast the next day and I was like, I'm scared for the future of this team. If the fact that game plan was even possible,
Mm-hmm.
that was like frightening to me for the future. And so it validated me when I saw that Amy saw it and thought the same thing.
Well, how about even worse? You brought up that Steeler game. If you remember, we were right there in that game, most
Mm-hmm.
of it, of course, but we had a situation to take the lead at the very end of the first half. And if I recall correctly, I tried to block it out of my mind, but it's very difficult. There was like a 3rd and 8, and we were maybe on the 12-yard line of Pittsburgh
Yep.
with like 15 seconds left in the first half. And we decided to run the ball and not throw the ball into the end zone
Yeah.
when we're down 4 points, something crazy like that.
Yep.
And obviously, Todd Downing had countless, countless blunders with the headset on. But again, it was Mike Vrabel that was in charge of that football team, and Downing staying was another thing that
Yep.
was his doing. That was an absolute disaster that even, people who had no vision could see that
That
Todd Downing was
that
never going to be the answer.
and that Bengals loss in the playoffs was
Oh,
partially
forget
on
it.
Downing too. And I could see the pain. That
Partially.
Yeah.
That's an understatement.
Yeah.
But it was him and Tannehill. They were
Yeah.
they were both hand in hand there for sure.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, bringing up that game is bringing
Yeah.
back bad memories. And so to see the reaction from the media when Vrabel was announced fired, I mean, the Titans were the butt of the joke for like a whole week. It was like, what are they thinking? This is the dumbest thing. And like, I was, my favorite episode of this podcast I've ever done was the one I was most proud of was the day after he got fired. And I was just like, listen, give the guys credit. He did a lot with a little,
Mhm.
when he was here. But it was like, why are we talking about this guy like he's, Bill Belichick or, Mike Tomlin or one
Yeah.
of these guys that's just, irreplaceable.
Yeah.
Where's he working now? Where
They were
where's
putting
he
him
at?
in that conversation. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was like, and my thought was, if we're so good with him, where did all you analysts have the Titans next year then? Were you guys excited for next year with the
Yeah.
Titans?
Absolutely.
With Vrabel, and now they're all changing their tone because they're like, oh, they got Calvin Ridley and L'Jarius Sneed and they did all this stuff. It's like, oh, now you guys want to, get on board with it. I just think there's a lot of. My theory is that the national media didn't know anything about the Titans except for we had Mike Vrabel as our coach and we had Derrick Henry as our running back. That's all they knew about us.
Hmm.
And so you take both of those things away in one off season, and people are just like, well, they must suck then because
Yeah, and listen, I definitely, and I've said this on multiple occasions, I do think Mike Vrabel was very good, at least in the early going, at getting his players ready to play on Sundays and motivating them each and every week. But with that being
absolutely.
said, one thing that a lot of people fail to realize, and it's just the reality of it, the success of the Titans over the span of the past decade has solely been dependent on Derrick Henry and a little bit of AJ Brown mixed in. I mean, now we've had some excellent defensive players,
Mhm.
especially, we have some cornerstone guys now. But if you look at the runs we went on, if you look at any of the success we had, I'm even off the Mariota bandwagon that he was really part of most of our success, 8, 9, 7, 8 years ago. It was Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is the guy that put this team on the map. He's the guy that made us relevant. He's the guy that put us in situations to win every single week.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Mike Vrabel had nothing to do with it, but you take Derrick Henry off of the Titans the last 7 years, and Mike Vrabel's probably fired 3, 4 years ago. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just the reality of it. Because you look at what this team did without Derrick Henry. Yeah, they pieced some things together with Deontay Foreman and the other guy a couple years ago. But in the playoffs, if Henry isn't having over 100 yards, we're done.
Yeah.
We're never able to win.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's partially why he might not have a job yet. And I think he will at some point. But the stubbornness, and if you look at this team that he coached in a vacuum, there's a lot of things you can point at as to why we had success outside of Mr. Vrabel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that one of the things that I'd like to get your take on too, and before we move on to kind of the future and what's coming up this fall, one of the things that I think put the Titans where they were, as far as the roster, obviously John Robinson played a large role in that too, and
Hmm.
he's also not with the Titans anymore,
Yeah.
obviously. But it felt like Mike Vrabel's favorite thing to do, and he was good at it, but it just wasn't a sustainable thing, was taking some practice squad guy
Hmm.
who, you know, barely made the roster
Yeah.
at all and trying to make them into that tough nose, kind of the Nick Westbrook Akine thing, where you take a guy who's a good special teams player and
Hmm.
you try and make him number two wide receiver on the team because he's a hard worker and
Yeah.
you like, and it's like, hey, I got nothing against hard work. Like, I got nothing to. I'm glad Westbrook Akine is probably going to be back and he'll find a spot on this roster. Good, that's great. I love those stories. We all love those stories.
Yeah.
But you can't fill the team full of just
No.
hard working. Everybody's working hard. It's the NFL. Everybody's a hard worker. So I think we had a roster full and we had a team full of guys who were hard workers, but just when you've got a hard worker lined up against Tyreek Hill,
Yeah.
I mean,
It doesn't matter. You're
yeah,
right. And then that's another thing that you can go back to with the in-house things that depth has never been a problem because we always like to keep these guys around that we've gotten undrafted and had on the
yeah,
team for 4 years, and we don't
right,
want to let them go. And there's still guys, honestly, that are on the team now. I'm not going to mention any names because there's some people in our fan base that love them, even though they've done basically nothing. But there's people on the team right now that we just don't want to let go, and I'm sure we will at some point. But yeah, you're right. Our mantra year after year was, had to be a Vrabel guy, had to be a
yeah,
J-Rob guy. Who cares? Who cares if they have a little bit of a record? Obviously, we don't want people on the team that lay their hands on women and drive
sure,
drunk and all that stuff. We're all against that. But at the end of the day, if they're going to be in the freaking league and they're going to help somebody win a damn Super Bowl, like my point is, we all we're worried about is buttoned up. Church on Sunday. Don't miss dinner every night with the family, guys, and that's great. But now that we have Brian Callahan, and I think a perfect example would be this Tavondre Sweat pick. Now I'm a little skeptical about it,
yeah,
but he's a guy that you would probably assume under J. Robin Vrabel wouldn't be their kind of guy, even though Isaiah Wilson was definitely not from that thread. And God for, unfortunately, we took that bait.
yeah,
But this is a new kind of team. It appears that Rand, Brian, they care about winning. They care about having guys that are going to perform on Sunday. Now, obviously, if they do horrific things, we're going to boot them. But
yeah,
we're not worried about, getting into a fight in college 10 years ago, oh, can't be on a team. No. Get the guys that are going to produce, get the guys that are leaders, even if they might be talkers, even if they might be flashy, get the right guys. And I think we've done that so far. Absolutely. At least in this offseason,
been a
definitely free agents. Yeah.
been a very eventful offseason. I think we knew it would be because we knew we had the cap space. Anytime you got a lot of money to work with, that's exciting. And the Titans, yeah, that's another thing. I feel like there have been times where we had money in the past, and it was just like, oh, we signed some linebacker from the fourth string of the
Yeah.
Broncos, and sometimes you got to get those guys, but to see Calvin Ridley, Sneed, Awuzie,
Hmm.
Cushenberry, Pollard, I mean, huge signings all over the
Yeah.
place. That I want to publicly say, as I've said a million times, if the Colts had the same offseason the Titans have had, people be
Oh,
going
yeah.
nuts.
Forget it. They'd be dark horses for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't understand. I don't understand why we have to act like Anthony Richardson is a proven commodity.
Yeah.
When, hey, he may be great, but how can you say he is or he
Yeah.
isn't? He's played.
And they have him ahead of Levis on every list imaginable.
Oh, who
And it
was
just
it?
goes to show you how uneducated these people are that get paid to talk sports and how little work they do. Because
Yeah,
it's true. The Titans get no respect on any level in any area. And it's really because solely that nobody watches us. And
yeah.
I think that's partially kind of our own fault in a way,
We're
because
boring.
we're boring. We've been boring almost our whole existence going
Yeah,
back to Houston. This has been a ground and pound team from Houston to Nashville, and it has not changed. Look at Steve McNair's stats, guys. I mean, as great as he was, the guy barely ever threw over 3,000 yards because we never threw the ball. And he had an
right.
arm like he had a cannon of an arm. And,
Yeah,
we ran Eddie into the ground. We ran Earl into the ground. We tried to run Derrick into the ground.
we
We need to
ran,
change it up. You
tried to
start throwing
CJ too.
touchdowns. You start having a kid under center that can pump fake and throw the ball 70 yards down the field. People are going to start watching you. Then they're going to start giving you respect. And I think Levis is going to take a huge step this year, and people are going to start putting him higher up on the board. And hopefully we get a little more attention. Not like I care too much, but
Right.
it'd be nice to get a little spotlight from here and there.
Yeah.
More stuff to watch on YouTube, right?
Yeah, I know. I think that, in transitioning, talking about this upcoming season, Brian Callahan, new coach, obviously Rand Carthon with even more of a hands-on impact this offseason, new staff. I mean, this is probably going to be one of the most, from one season to the next, I mean, completely different
Oh yeah,
team.
absolutely.
Off on the sideline and on the field. And we've always had the same kind of guy, I feel like, at coach. The Vrabel, when you look back, that was the most Titans hire ever.
Oh yeah.
Like, he is such a Titans coach.
Yep.
And now you're entering this new, I mean, come on, look at the NFL right now. If you're going to compete with Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, all of those quarterbacks are in the AFC. Why can none of these guys go to the NFC? If you're going to compete with these guys, you ain't going to do it beating them 13-10.
No.
You're going to have to score points. You're going to have to get yards. So it's a relief to me when I hear Brian Callahan say that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we got to throw the ball.
And that's what Vrabel wanted to do till the very end.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
what I was
turn it
screaming
out.
about.
Yeah.
Like, guys, how do you believe that we're going to beat Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud running the ball 35 times? That's just not going to be how it's done.
Yeah.
Because all they need is a touchdown or two, and you're playing catch up, and that's not how it's going to work. No.
We that's one thing you could always know about past Titans teams. If we get behind, with the exception of
wraps.
that Miami game, where we somehow scored 2 touchdowns in like 2 minutes, what a collapse by the Dolphins in
Yeah.
that game, by the way.
That was gorgeous.
Yeah, it was. And on that note, let's talk about Will Levis.
Mhm.
We've gotten our hopes up before. I had my hopes high for Marcus, just like you did.
Yep.
I thought he was going to be the guy. He was never the. Where do you think the train came off the tracks for Marcus? By the way, I personally think it's when he broke his leg at the end of his sophomore season. I feel like that's when things went awry. Where do you think things went south with him?
I mean, you can look at that. You can definitely look at that, and it makes perfect sense to believe that that's really where it went off the tracks. But I gotta be honest with you, Brad, and I've come to this realization with the entrance of Will Levis. There's just an edge that you really need to have as a quarterback
Yeah.
in order to take the next step. There were moments in Marcus Mariota's career where he showed emotion. One of the biggest ones, or one of the two biggest ones, would be the stiff arm
Yeah.
against the Jags to get to the playoffs. He walked his ass right up to that guy and looked over his shoulder and said, "Yes, bitch, I just did that."
Yeah.
And then the second would be when he laid the block down for Derrick Henry against the Chiefs in the
Yeah.
playoffs to
Yeah.
get that first down to seal the game. They went berserk on that sideline. He went berserk. But
I
outside
went
of that,
berserk at home. I went berserk.
oh,
at
forget
home.
it. I have a video of me and my father watching that game.
Exact same moment.
Yes. He didn't know I was recording though, and I don't think he still doesn't know I have the video.
Yeah.
But it was incredible. My point being, Marcus didn't have that edge, man. He really didn't. He was a little bit too contempt. I or content, I should say, with the way he
Yeah,
played. Didn't really go the extra mile. And Levis is just, you look at him on the field
he's a
and you
madman.
truly believe he would die to win.
Yeah,
And there's nobody on earth that I have more confidence. I'm more excited to ride out into the sunset with than this guy because he's got everything you could want. He's got the arm, he's got the poise and the drive and the edge that only a couple dudes have in this league right now. And some of them haven't won yet, but they have the edge, and that edge you need to play well in January. And
yeah.
I'm hopeful to see him playing well in January sooner than later.
I remember. I think it was after that Dolphins game, that comeback
Yeah,
win. I think you put out a video. It made me
that
laugh so
was.
hard. You said something like, "Hey, I know Houston's got Stroud, Jags got Trev, and
Hmm.
Colts got Anthony Richardson, whatever." Be like, but you said, but I'll tell you what. He said the Tennessee Titans have the craziest mother, you know what,
We do.
in the AFC South, and we do. This guy is a
Yeah.
madman,
Yeah.
and I hate to say this because people are going to get on me for it, but the last guy that I saw who was just insane like that was Tom Brady. This guy used to be like going nuts on the
Yeah, hey,
sideline.
listen, you're talking about mentality, so you shouldn't get
Yeah,
any flack for that.
exactly. I'm strictly
They're,
talking
they're,
about mentality.
yeah, you could say Philip Rivers, in a sense, kind of
Oh
had that
yeah,
kind of burst and that edge, and obviously that didn't work out.
he
And I
did.
think he was a maybe slightly above average quarterback. But you look at Levis, you look at Philip Rivers, the physical attributes are definitely way more to Levis's credit there. So,
Yeah,
um, yeah, Brady, what you have to do, and I've said this a million times, you have to expect, or you have to, what's the word I'm looking for? You have to get the best out of everyone.
yeah,
Every player, every 53, when they get to work every day, you have to put the fear of God in them that, if I don't do well, I'm getting my ass chewed out by my quarterback.
yeah,
And when you have that respect for for your leader, the dividends are endless. This is a game of inches.
yeah,
You need 100% effort on every single play of every single game to get to your ultimate goal of being champions. And the guys like Tom Brady got that out of everyone on both
yeah.
sides of the ball, and that's why his old ass went to Tampa Bay and
And did it
turned a
again.
pretty decent team into an excellent team.
Yeah,
Because guys like Mike Evans, they were like, "Holy shit. All right, this is a different animal,
yeah,
okay? I can't take any plays off now. This is
yeah.
Tom Brady." And you got the product that you got, and that was a championship. So,
Some people didn't like this moment, but there was something that stood out to me. I don't even remember what game this was. It was like his third or fourth start, where he went over to the sideline. He went over to D Hop and was
that was
like,
game 1.
was it?
That was against Atlanta.
He went over to
Yes.
D Hop and was like letting him have
Yep.
it, in a respectful way, because D Hop's a legend. But he was kind of letting him have it, and at the moment I was like, "Oh my god, he's gonna lose the locker room right away." But looking back, I think listen to the way D Hop talks about Levis. Like I think that kind of earned some respect. I think from Hopkins in that moment, because it was like, "Hey, if this guy is gonna come up
Yeah.
to me like this." And of course we
Make
don't
no
know what was
mistake.
said, but
Oh yeah. Well, no, he chewed him out.
yeah,
Absolutely. I've watched that clip numerous times.
yeah,
And then they said after the game that there was some confusion about the route, whatnot. But make no mistake, Brad, if D Hop didn't have the most confidence in Will Levis, he wouldn't be on this team.
right.
He wouldn't be on this
He
team.
would have
Like,
demanded a trade.
yeah, he would have demanded trade. I think there was an out anyway, but you look at DeAndre's social media, look at everything he says in the meetings. He loves it here. He loves this kid, and he loves growing with this kid. I would not be surprised, and I go to bed every night praying it's the case that Diop ends his career here. Maybe does another 2 years after
Sure.
this, and tries to be that veteran to maybe get us over the hump. Maybe he'll stick around for the first year in the new stadium. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
what his career is looking like, but.
Looked
I
good
think the
last year.
respect is there. He sure did. The respect is there from everyone on the team for this kid, and the more fire that he shows on the sideline, I think it's going to be a snowball effect. I'm so excited, man. Hey, we
Yeah.
should be in every game with this kid. We should be in every game with this kid as long as he's protected.
Yeah. I think that I I think you've about. I mean, I think they could still pick up a safety or something
Yeah.
over these next
Yeah.
couple months. But in terms of improving the roster and turning the roster, I mean, you like to think the O line's improved. Lloyd Cushenberry at center.
Hmm.
J.C. Latham's as big as my house, and he's
Yeah.
he's coming in at left tackle. You got Skoronski back, who's buffed up, over the
Yep.
offseason. Got to figure out the right side of the O line. But I want to talk about the wide receiver group because I've been saying this a while back in the
Hmm.
Vrabel days, especially out of a place of aggravation.
Hmm.
You got to put the best weapons you can get around a kid to make sure that he's in a position to succeed. Like you have to. You can't stick Will Levis or Bryce Young or Caleb Williams or any young quarterback. You can't stick them out there with just any old guy and expect and any old protection and expect them to produce. I mean, Will
Yeah.
Levis was. I don't know how he did what he did last year with the offensive line we had, and outside of Hopkins, who was he throwing to?
Chris
And
Moore.
Chris Moore and
I was pretty much his second best connection was
yeah,
Chris
it
Moore.
was.
That says it all right there.
Exactly. And Chris Moore's probably going to be like a wide receiver 4 for Arizona, right? This year or
I
wherever.
couldn't tell you.
I don't even know.
Couldn't
So
tell you.
he would have probably come back if Vrabel was.
Oh yeah.
That'd have
Oh,
been
yeah.
Vrabel's first act of business. He'd have been like,
And they would have tried to sell us on it too. Like, oh, Chris Moore, number 3 receiver on our team. I'll take it.
had
Okay.
2 catches a game last year.
Yeah.
That's perfect for us.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm so excited, like beyond belief, to see Calvin Ridley. The fact that we went out and got, I mean, top wide receiver free agent this year, and like stole him from the Jags. I'm sorry, that'll always bring a smile to my face.
Yeah.
You got Ridley, you got Hopkins, you got Boyd. I'm excited at Pollard and Spears in the backfield.
Mhm.
I'm just glad that they're giving the kid a chance.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts, that's what they did with him. Don't we know it? We know
Yep.
who they went out and got. Jalen Hurts, they've tried this with Tua. You can't just stick your young guy out there and evaluate him with nobodies.
Mhm.
So that way, if he comes out and it doesn't work out, God forbid, this year, at least then we gotta get somebody else. And I hope that's
Yeah.
not the case. But like worst case, you can at least know, because if he comes out and you got a bunch of nobodies, then who knows why we suck? Is it because of the receivers? Because of the O line? Because of the quarterback? So I'm thrilled with the wide receiving group. And one guy I want to ask you about, because people debate this guy every day on
Yeah.
Titans
I know where you're headed.
Traylon Burks.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I still have so much hope for him, Brad. I really
do
do.
too. I do too.
You look, he's just, he's a guy that if you didn't know anything about him except for his height and weight, you'd say to yourself, and his speed, and you saw him run, you'd say to yourself, okay, I don't know about you, but to me that looks like, Jerry Rice, right? And then you see what he does on the field, and there's moments where he looks like he should be a top 10 wide receiver in the league. He's mossed people.
Yeah.
He's stiff-armed people. His speed is so underrated, the way he's able to accelerate. But number one, there's 2 things in my opinion what's holding him back. Number one, I don't think he's there enough up here. I don't think he's locked in. I don't think this is important enough to him. Now, I don't know. This is all my humble opinion. And obviously, of course, what's not my humble opinion and what's a fact is his health. Can't stay healthy,
Yeah.
can't produce. Nothing else matters if you can't stay on the field. The reality of the situation is this. He is going to have single coverage every second he touches the field this year. Every second. He will never, ever be doubled at all when he's playing this year. So if he could stay healthy and he can put his mind or he can stay locked in and focused, there should be no reason why he can't have a 1,000-yard season.
Yeah.
He very well could, because Levis is going to throw him the damn ball if he's wide open.
Yeah.
And he has the ability to get around people. He could be an excellent slot receiver. Just going to be a matter if he could stay healthy, and that's it. But this is the last shot. I mean, he won't be on the team next year. I don't care if we have him for another year or not. He's going to be done if he doesn't produce.
Yeah.
So
I have 2 things that encourage me about Traylon. The first is that, let's be honest, he was drafted into an awful situation. We traded AJ and then 2 minutes later drafted him.
Yeah.
So whether it's fair or not, he was viewed as AJ's replacement from day one.
Hmm.
So a lot of pressure, and a lot of discourse about that online, and it's just
Yeah.
it's a tough situation to come into for a young guy. Second thing, and what I'm saying, he won't have to deal with that this year because I mean that
Hmm.
pressure. He's wide receiver 4, right? Um,
Yeah.
but the other thing that encourages me is that like the only thing he's ever known in the NFL is a Vrabel offense. Like it's all he's ever known is you're an
Yeah.
afterthought pretty much. We're gonna run the ball and you're gonna get it thrown to you a couple times. So maybe wiping the slate clean with a guy like Brian Callahan, maybe that can be the thing he needs to at least be a deep threat for this team. To like you said, a slot receiver, which is what he did in college when he had a lot of success in Arkansas. So that gives me reason to at least have some hope for him.
Hmm.
But can we just talk about the awful drafts we had from 2020 to 2022? Like,
Yeah.
God.
Bad.
Isaiah
Real bad.
Wilson, Caleb Farley, Traylon Burks, 3 straight first round picks. And
Yeah, I mean that was the demise of J Rob right there. It
yeah,
really was.
and
You just can't have a draft like that and then
3
think,
drafts like that.
yeah, and then just think you have your job secured. And
Yeah,
like I said, Rand Carthon, his first draft is still a little bit left or remains to be seen, but I think all things considered,
good
you look
start.
at those first three guys. A lot of upside with those three guys in the first rounds of the draft. And now this year, again, I already mentioned the sweat pick, still a little bit of a head scratcher. Even today, I'm trying to get around to it, but I rewatched the draft a couple times and I'm looking at these players that were there but
Yeah,
at the end of the day, it filled a need, and I'm not gonna complain about a damn thing until this kid is a no-show on Sundays, and
right.
that still plenty of time for that to happen. So,
Yeah,
but I mean, really, Rand's done a pretty good job so far,
hmm
and we'll see about this one. But just for sake of discussion, if this sweat pick really doesn't work out, that's
it's not
gonna be a
good. Yeah,
bad look. It's gonna be a bad look. But
yeah.
let's hope that doesn't happen.
Real quick before we start to wrap it up here, I know because you've been a fan a long time. We're the same
All
age,
time.
and I want to kind of go back because a lot of people may not know. I don't even think I know. What is your Titan fan origin story? How did your
It's a good one.
fandom start with these guys?
Yeah. So I could be wrong about the team they played against. So I won't mention the team they played against. But long story short, I think my father was around the age of maybe 8 to 12, somewhere in that realm. And he happened to throw on the TV one night, and the Oilers were playing on Monday night.
Hmm
And he saw the color scheme, and he saw Earl Campbell, Dan Pastorini, and fell in love with him. And that's it. That's the rest is history. He's been a fan of this organization for about 50 years now. 50 years. He followed them to Nashville. I was obviously born well before they came to Nashville. I was born an Oilers fan. There's plenty of photos of me in Oilers baby outfits. And yeah, I became, I was just, I didn't have a choice,
hmm
which looking back on it, I'm so happy that I didn't. And now my dad, if he was listening, said, of course he had a choice. But at the end of the day, if I'm watching the Titans every Sunday, what the hell, how the
Yeah,
hell am I going to be a Giant fan?
yeah,
We,
sure.
we're going to a different sports bar every weekend and watch the Titans, not the
Yeah,
Giants. So, that's it. I've been, diehard ever since, and I thank him for it as often as I can because I just couldn't imagine being a fan of any other team. I mean, I genuinely feel like this team is a part of me, and obviously, in a way, it kind of is.
yeah,
But
yeah.
um, yeah, it's just been a tremendous, tremendous journey, and boy, I just can't fathom getting that ultimate goal, and I pray every night that I'll be able to experience it with my dad.
Yep.
And like I said, I've said it a million times, and I believe it. If it ain't gonna be with this kid, I don't know if it's just ever gonna be
Yeah.
because he's got that it that you need to hold the trophy in your hand, and let's just hope everything comes together
I
and we
think
start making our way to that goal.
I think about it all the time, like what I would even do
Yeah.
if it happens.
Yeah, no, I would
I
cry. I would cry a
oh,
lot.
I would cry for weeks.
Cry a lot. Yeah, cry a
I
lot.
and very similar. I grew up outside of Nashville, and
Okay.
I was 6 years old when they moved to Nashville. And same thing, my dad, a huge football fan, and he wanted to support the local team. And so they, of course, went to the Super Bowl. You know that like first year that they
Yep.
were the Tennessee Titans, and I just remember watching that and Music City Miracle, of course. And when I really got the bug, he took me to a game. I think back then it was Adelphia Coliseum. He
Yep.
took me to a game and they played the Bengals. They beat them 35-3. Steve threw like 4 touchdowns. That was it. I was
Yeah.
been obsessed ever since, and
Yeah, that's my
it's only gotten worse into
oh,
adulthood.
forget it.
Like,
Yeah, but that's kind of only my only small regret is that it took me a little bit of time to become, a fanatic. Like I don't remember the Music City Miracle. I'll be
mm,
honest with you. I really
yeah,
don't. It's I don't remember where I was. I don't remember if it really even phased me.
hmm,
Again, I was 6, so yeah. Well, you're
yeah.
gonna be 31. You're turning 31.
September, I'm
What
turning
day?
15th. They're playing the
Okay.
Jets. They're playing the
So
Jets on my
you're
birthday.
yeah, you're 2 weeks older than me.
Wow.
Or actually, you're 2 weeks younger than me because I was born August 31st.
Okay.
So I'll be 31 on the 31st.
So
But
we
yeah.
have the Titans in common, and we also have, I can judge by your Twitter, we also have at least some level of wrestling fandom, professional
Oh,
wrestling fandom in common as
forget it.
well.
Yeah, but unfortunately, Brad, it's no longer for me. It stopped around 2006.
Okay.
Yeah,
The
I've
Cena days.
tried. Yeah, no, I was an attitude freak.
Oh yeah.
You know, um, I got videos of me of like 7, 8 years old ripping shirts off like Hulk Hogan and shit when he
Yeah.
returned.
Oh yeah.
Uh, but yeah, no, I don't really remember a lot of I don't really remember much of the Super Bowl. That's the only thing. Like, I wish even at the ages of like 5, 6, 7, I was glued to it.
Yeah.
Because I know some of my friends that I met through here that are fans, they remember where they were when they were 6 watching the Music City Miracle. I don't, but forget it now. Like I have a memory bank of every Titan game probably for the
Oh.
last 15 years, and I haven't missed one since um, the comeback against Arizona. That was
Yep.
the last game I didn't watch with Vince Young, Kenny
Kenny
Britt in the
Britt.
back of the end zone. I had to watch that. I wasn't with my dad that weekend, and I'm watching it on the old ESPN Game Center because the internet was still kind of like that was what, '08.
Yep.
And I haven't missed the game since. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
but
That's me. I watch the me and my dad still watch the games together.
mm,
So I've seen some of your text exchanges that you upload with your
yeah.
dad talking Titans. We have a lot of the same things. So, do you have any games in particular that stand out to you as kind of special looking back? Any certain games that you can get extra sentimental about looking back
Yeah,
on?
yeah. Two. One would be the game winner against the Chiefs with
Suck
when
up.
it was like 5 degrees. Yeah,
Yep.
suck up. That was special. That was real. I still have a post about that game, how really amazing it was.
Mm.
And then, but the number one would definitely be the Ravens game, the Ravens playoff game,
Oh,
because that was just so unexpected. Like, obviously we're fans. At the end of the day, we have high hopes, but I had
yeah.
zero. I thought we had zero shot of winning that game. And not only did we win it, did we dominated them. And, I just remember each touchdown, he just kept jumping in my arms. And it was cool. It was cool to know, fuck, we're one game away from the Super Bowl.
Oh, I still get chills thinking about.
Yeah.
I hope someday I get a feeling as a fan, like tuning into that AFC title game and like the energy. I was numb, like my arms were numb.
Yeah,
I was so excited for
yeah.
that Chiefs game, and we
Didn't eat that whole
outdid it.
weekend. Didn't
Oh,
wasn't able to eat a
oh,
cracker that whole weekend.
didn't sleep much either.
Yeah. And let me tell you, up until that dreadful run at the end of the first half, I thought we were going to do it.
I
I
did
really
too.
did. But once Mahomes just kind of looked like Barry Sanders for whatever reason, but about 4 times slower
Yeah,
and decided to just evade our entire defense, that was it. You knew it was over then. Uh,
there have been 3 years where I thought it might be our year. '08
hmm
with Kerry Collins, Chris
Yep.
Johnson lost to Joe Flacco and the Ravens at home, number one
Well, that's
seed.
because they hurt Chris Johnson on purpose, but
They did, yeah.
and Algie Crumpler
It was-
fumbles and forget
everybody
it. That
fumbled,
well,
yeah,
that's a rabbit hole we could go
yeah.
down for a
I
while.
I want to try to have a good day.
Yeah.
At the 2019, I thought it was our year. Went to the AFC. I was still so proud of that team though that even though we came up short, I was like, you know what, this 9-7 team, you know. But the Bengals loss, I don't know if I've ever felt like that after a game. That was a low
That was
point.
it. That was the team. That was
That
the team that was good that would have won if we had a competent coordinator and a quarterback that, didn't have so many demons. And
yeah
that's just the reality of it. Ryan Tannehill has some demons, man, that he could not fight. He was open about it. He said it multiple times at the stand, how he needed a therapist to get through this, that, and the other. Unfortunately, that ain't gonna work in the NFL.
yeah
You know that, Brad. Tom Brady ain't seeing no damn therapist after a loss. He's getting his ass back in the gym and he's
yeah
throwing balls into a net and he's you know, uh, smacking himself in the face, preparing himself for next week's game. So
yeah
then that's what Levis is. Again, obviously we're not calling Levis Brady, but you got to have that edge, and
yeah.
that's what's promising about watching this team in the future is we're gonna have a kid with that edge. So
I agree. I agree. I hope he turns out to be as good. You know, I think the protection he's going to have, the weapons. I'm very excited. Very excited for him, and excited for us. Excited for the
yeah,
fans. And don't look now, man. But it's June,
I
and
know it's
we
gonna be
got
like
2 months till preseason, and three. I expect will probably play some in preseason to get some snaps. But man,
hmm
I want to wrap it up here. I appreciate you coming on today, man. And before I get you to rank your top 5 Titans of all
hmm
time, I want to give you time to think about that. I want you to promote you guys' podcast. Let everybody know the Sick Podcast, Talking Titans. To let them know where they can find you. Obviously, you have some co-hosts on there with you, but you guys have guests on. How often you
yeah.
record, upload. Let everybody know the details.
Yeah. So yeah, as you said, which I appreciate, Sick Podcast Talking Titans. We're on Twitter. We have a YouTube page. We're on Apple, Spotify, whatnot. We try to do at minimum 1 episode a week. Once we get closer to the season, we'll probably ramp up a little bit. But with the summer approaching, my both my co-hosts are got families that they're either starting or maintaining. So we do our best. But yeah, so we're on YouTube, Twitter, and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And yeah, like I said earlier, I really appreciate having you on, Brad. As I mentioned, I do watch your post games all the time, and we share a lot of the same sentiments as most Titan fans do. But I agree with a lot of things you said. That's why I continue to watch,
Appreciate it.
everything you put up. And yeah, no, let's definitely do this again for sure in the future.
Absolutely, man. Wrap it up by giving me your top 5.
Yeah. All right. So 5, I'm gonna put Javon Curse.
Oh, the freak.
Yeah, the freak. He probably could be higher, but I'm gonna save the top 4 for offensive players. So number 4, I'm gonna have to put Steve McNair. 3, I'm gonna go Eddie George.
Mm.
Nope, flop that. Flip that. 4
Okay.
is Eddie George. 3 is Steve McNair. 2 is Derek Mason.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, Derek Mason probably one of the first players that I was like, I really think that guy's awesome.
Yeah.
So I got
Probably.
to put
I
him in the
mean,
top
probably
three.
the second best wide receiver in the history of the
Yeah,
franchise,
which
right?
is super
Yeah,
sad, Brad, by
very.
the way,
Yeah.
because Derrick Mason had a very average receiving career for the
Yes.
Titans.
Absolutely.
But let's hope that's not the case moving forward. But man, that 85 jersey was one
Yep.
that I treasured growing up. And number one's got to be Chris Johnson, and
Okay.
it's only because he is the reason that I am the fanatic freak that I am now.
Okay.
He was the reason that I started not missing Titan games. I was always a fan. I was a fan of this team before they were even the Titans because I was born into it. But I was that casual, like, yeah, I'm a Titans fan. And if my dad's watching the game, I'll go to the sports bars with him and I'll
Yeah.
be on my PlayStation portable while he's watching the game.
Yeah.
And I got my jersey on. I'm a fan of the team, but I wasn't really. When Chris Johnson came onto the team, I was like, oh my God, I
Yeah.
don't want to miss a single snap of this guy. And that's when I went full investment mode. And I haven't looked back, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse and worse, obviously, throughout
Yep.
the years. But I got to give CJ a top spot because he is the reason I'm the fan I am today. So that's
Absolutely.
it.
Man, we had some good times with him too. What an explosive player. What an
Yeah.
Man, I appreciate you coming on. And I appreciate everybody for listening. Everybody make sure. Thank you guys that put me over 1,000 subs on YouTube, by the way, on the Two Tone Talk podcast. Please go like and subscribe if you're not already. And I'm on Spotify and SoundCloud and all the other platforms as well. And we'll have to have Sal back on sometime, especially once the season gets going.
Yes.
Hopefully it'll be happy times. Hopefully it'll be.
I hope it is. Oh, I gotta say one thing, Brad.
Go
One
ahead.
thing, and it just popped in my head, and I'm really embarrassed by it. But I gotta do it.
Okay.
I gotta take Curse out of 5, and I gotta put Derrick Henry there. I gotta.
Yeah.
I can't not have Derrick Henry in the top 5. That's sacrilegious.
Yep.
That's horrible. Couldn't do it. Curse is 6. Henry's 5. Now I think I might have heard a few rumblings in the comments. So got that out of the way.
Somebody was about to go over to Twitter
Yeah,
and let you
and
have it.
crucify me.
Threaten your family for,
Yeah.
for you putting Curse ahead of Derek. I appreciate you coming on, man. I appreciate everybody for watching and listening. And we'll be back soon with more Two Tone Talk podcast. Go check out the sick podcast, Talking Titans. And tighten up, everybody. God bless you. Have a good day. Tighten up. Bye.
Tighten up, guys.